Hey, welcome to another edition of Try Knoxville. Mike Roberts along for the ride. And a couple weeks ago, I had a chance to talk to Kevin Kincaid, and it triggered a memory of mine, that story he told about Brian Clarke going into the Navy the same time he did. And I've known Brian forever. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to give him a call and get his story out there. Because, I mean, you're a hometown kid.
I am.
You have been back for quite a while now, but you kind of had the same type of roller coaster that Kevin had there for a while, too. So let's talk about clearback and the wayback machines, I always call it, you know. Knoxville, Iowa, you were raised here.
That's right.
Family and everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're originally from out there at Flagler.
Right.
You know, rode the bus in and out and went to elementary school, and then we left for a little while. I think it was 2nd through 5th grade or something. Came back to Knoxville, and I was here for
the duration.
Well, yeah, until we graduated, and then of course we left again for a while. And
where'd you guys go for the 2nd and 5th grade thing through that?
We went to school. Dad was working at the VA.
Okay.
And so in Des Moines, so he wanted to get closer, so we went over to Monroe.
Okay.
And lived there for a couple of years, and then ended up going actually into Des Moines, and I went to Hillis Elementary up there for a year, which was not one of the best experiences in the whole world, you know, being 5th and 6th grade and twin brother and mom and dad working all the time. We found things that we probably shouldn't have gotten into.
You were at Hillis Elementary. I've heard about Hillis before. That kind of toughen up a little bit up there, didn't you?
Yeah, it was an experience, and that was the thing, is having a twin brother and everybody wanted to try us. So we had our fair share of interactions with people that
I like that word.
Yeah. So it kind of toughened us up a little bit.
I knew you went up to Des Moines. I didn't know you were a wild. Actually, I almost said Mustang, but you were a Wildcat back then. There were Monroe Wildcats.
Right, Monroe Wildcat. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I think I was there from 2nd through 5th. Yeah, end of 5th grade.
Okay.
Then we went to Des Moines, and that was probably one of the longest years of my life. So
I gotta say, 1 year up there and back down to Knoxville.
Yeah.
So
we were thankful to come back.
Did you guys land in Knoxville then when you came back?
When we came back, we moved out to Flagler.
Okay.
My grandpa was sick, and he invited Dad to move into the big house and he ended up in the smaller house. So yeah, we spent 6th grade through the senior year out there at Flagler and had a blast.
You did. I remember those days.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but it is what it is. So
sure.
Got out of high school, what'd you do?
Right out of high school, Brad Carter and I decided to take off and go to California to be beach bums for a year.
He still is, on the other side of the country.
He is, and he's loving every minute of it too. He sends me pictures all the time of his feet on the beach. So he tries to rub it in a little bit, but it's it's been good for him, and I was lucky enough to come back home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell us about we got Kincaid's version of the getting in the Navy. Is it the same story?
I imagine it's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
But I would have to say, after I got back from California, and he had got himself into a little jam down at Northeast Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Northeast down in Kirksville, right?
Yep.
So
they call it Truman State now or something like that. Yeah.
So he calls me, and or actually, he had made a couple trips up here to Knoxville, and that summer was just kind of a free for all.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I listened to his side of the story, that we were just kind of wandering the streets, and essentially that's what we were doing, finding as much trouble as we could get into. And Kevin made a comment that he had already taken the ASVAB test to get into the military.
Right.
And he said, maybe you ought to think about going with me or whatever. Let's go do it. And, that was one of the furthest things from my mind. I had a brother that was in. My dad was in. We had a lot of military in the family, but I just couldn't find myself stepping up to the plate there. And
we should specify Brother Randy was in the Navy.
That's right. Yeah. And his experience wasn't the best, I don't think, in the military. So he discouraged. He was, this will be the last thing that you want to do. I don't think you ever want to get in there.
Right.
But with Kevin going in, and Kevin and I were, best friends from way back,
Sure.
And at the point where both of us had no real direction, I think it was probably one of the best decisions we ever made. Looking back on it, obviously it was. So
that's kind of what he said too. I can't remember the exact quote on that, but and just to ad lib this thing a little bit, you guys were kind of on what I call on the radar.
Absolutely.
Of disaster, if you will.
Right.
And the Navy changed you. I mean, just boom.
Yeah, like he said, we went in under I think it was the buddy program or something. So we were guaranteed a couple schools together, and then after that, it wasn't really guaranteed. But in our minds, we thought we'd be in the Navy, and what he did, I did, and it would have been the same thing as if we were back here. But I think once he decided that he was going to, I think he went to Scotland, and then I ended up in Charleston, South Carolina. It was the time for us to break the bond.
Yeah, the buddy system was over as far as that aspect of it was concerned.
And he helped me get through school. I helped him.
Mm-hmm.
We found a lot of, common friends at the time while we were in sub school. But once we separated, we had to become ourselves individually, and we were able to, really step up to the plate. Essentially, we did our jobs. We had fun. We got out of the military, and we were on the right track. Right,
you survived it.
Right.
Tell me when, I kind of asked him the same type of question, but I'm going to pose this to you a little bit different. When did it become real when you got in the Navy? When did you realize, like, okay, this is not fun and games. This isn't, what I thought it was going to be. Randy might have been right.
Mm-hmm.
When did it become real?
Oh, I would say probably about the second day into boot camp. Yeah, they come in with a trash can bouncing things around, and both Kevin and I had already been out on our own for a year or so. So to have, guys coming in, barking orders, telling us what to do. We just got our hair cut, shaved off. Everybody lost their individuality. And we became a unit.
Yeah, reprogrammed is what I call it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so with the company commanders coming in and just basically saying, hey, you're our property now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably when it kicked in for me. I thought, oh, what did we just do?
Yeah.
This was ridiculous. So we had to play the game.
Right.
And obviously it went really well for both of us. He became a squad leader or something. I got chose to be some drill hall RPOC type of thing. And I don't know if they saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. But gradually we advanced and we got more responsibilities and people looked up to us, and stepping out of boot camp was really a big hurdle for us.
Kind of enlightening, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And then our next step was to go to sub school.
Mm-hmm.
So we were out in Groton, Connecticut, and I struggled a little more with the academics than what he did.
Okay.
And so I was
He must have been terrible because the way he talked, he had trouble. He was good in math, I think it was, but some other stuff he had trouble with. So
yeah, and I was never a real good student. I had a lot of potential. I just didn't apply myself.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Funny, I had two sons the same way. It's like, just apply yourself and you'll do well. But so my grades were kind of slipping in sub school, and it probably had something to do with some of our nightlife too. But on the other hand, I also had an issue with equalizing my ears.
Okay.
And in submarines, you have to go through this testing to make sure that your ears will equalize, because you don't want to blow eardrums when you go down a submarine. And
now, just put that in layman's terms. Mm-hmm. Similar if people fly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's a change in altitude, and in your case, it's going down.
And once, absolutely, it's just the inverse. But so I couldn't actually pop my eardrums.
Okay.
And so they put me through a test that basically said, I wish I knew the name of it, but say there was a midline and the results had to touch the line.
Gotcha.
Mine barely touched the line. So they gave me this option, and knowing that was screwing up in school,
Right.
I said, well, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
You go ahead and send me home. I got a medical discharge. Well, we had some high leader. I mean, he highest enlisted man in the military, if I recall correctly,
Okay.
came to me and he said, no, he goes, you hit the line. I think you need to stay in. He says, I don't think this is your decision anymore.
Yeah.
And at that time I thought, well, now if I fail out of school, I go out to the fleet.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily going to like that very well. So yeah, unfortunately.
Real.
Yeah. So I buckled down, brought my grades back up,
Sure.
graduated out of sub school, and that's when we went to technically the fleet, but the sub programs that we'd already selected.
Right. When you got in the sub program, what year was that?
That'd be, I believe it was 1983.
83. How long were you in then after that?
I was in until, so it would have been October 83 to October 87.
Okay.
And so we were on a 4 and 2 program, which is 4 years active, 2 inactive.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 2 inactive, basically you just had to go check in once or something like that once a year.
Right.
And at the time, there wasn't anything major going on at all. So when my 2 years were up, I thought I would be totally done. Well, I started college at that time too,
Right.
at the University of Iowa, and I needed money to go to school. So I re-enlisted for another 6 years to go do the reserve program. Well, that didn't work out so well for me either. So I went to technically active reserves,
Right.
and the Persian Gulf War broke out, and they wouldn't let me out. They wanted to send me out to the fleet.
Right.
And I said, well, this is my last year of school. That's when I had actually started nuclear medicine program at Iowa. And that was a tough program to even get in the first place. And I knew that if I were delayed, I'm done. And so I convinced the guys to allow me into the program and hold me up. And I said, well, later on, I'll go to the fleet if that's what you guys want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the war was over fairly quickly. And so
Good deal.
as soon as it was over, I went back inactive, and I rode that out for another 4 years and didn't play again.
Yeah.
Well, I had Reinhardt from Knoxville
Right.
ask me if I wanted to go as an officer. So I went back in. I went to go back in because they said if you get your degree, you can be an officer.
Sure.
I go to talk to these guys, and they tell me I have to go back active again. There was no way in the world that I was going back active.
So when was the final day then? What year?
Let's see. Well, 87 to
93-ish?
93.
Yeah. I bring that up because I started working with Little Big Brother, as I always called him, Randy,
Sure.
at the radio station back then.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't seen you since school. You graduated in 83 or 2? 82. You're 2 years ahead of me. I always get that confused for some reason.
Right.
And I hadn't seen you since high school. And I started working with Randy, and he says, oh, yeah, he's in the Navy. He's doing this. And I went, no way. He goes, oh, yeah. I mean, it almost became an argument, and, us two bulls arguing all the time,
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, there were a lot of people that couldn't believe that I went into the military.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, so, and again, it, just like Kev said, it kind of saved you, got in the right direction, and took care of some of the bills, obviously, too.
Right.
Now, how'd you get into nuclear medicine? Was that just off the whim, or
what
pointed you that direction?
It was kind of a fluke as well. So I got out of the once I got out of active duty in 87. I ended up going up to Virginia where my sisters were, and worked building horse fences for about a year.
Right.
And I realized there's no way I want to do this kind of work the rest of my life. So. And I was trying my best to work my way back to the University of Iowa. So once I got to Iowa City, I knew I needed to make some money. And there's a college work study program and a veterans work study program. the Veterans Work Study program, identical programs, but they paid $1 more an hour.
There you go.
So I stepped into the VA and I said, "Hey, listen, I need a job while I'm going to school." And they said, "Well, we have several options for you." And they said, "Well, what did you do in the military?" And I said, "Well, I was in nuclear submarines."
Mm-hmm.
And instead of telling them that I was a mechanic, which that's what I did, or damage control type of stuff, I wanted to use the fancier terms.
Sure.
And the whoever the lady was said, "Well, we have an opening in nuclear medicine."
Nice.
And I said, "I'll take it."
Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up.
So I went in and did a little bit of work with those people up there at the VA. And when I realized what they were doing, I said, "Hey, what's the chances of you guys paying for my school?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you have a program to do that?" And they said, "Excuse me, no problem.
Yeah.
You spend, if we pay for 2 years, you spend 2 years." And it worked out.
Fair trade.
Yeah, worked out pretty well.
When I found out, and this was another argument that Randy and I had, that you were on a nuclear sub, I'm like, no,
Right.
That's not safe at all, you know. Knoxville,
Mm-hmm.
you get out of school, it's a new game. You've been gone for a while, even though you've been in and out. You've been gone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Got your own business to start up.
Mm-hmm. Well, so
you bounced around before that.
Yeah, I worked in Iowa City
Right.
for, I think I was in Iowa City almost 10 years.
Right.
And so it was in 97.
Right.
Actually, 96. I had considered coming down here because, I went through a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and Candy had brought the boys to Knoxville. And for me to see them on a regular basis, I felt it was
Sure.
very important for me to come back this direction. So I approached the hospital out here and asked what the possibilities of bringing nuclear medicine to Knoxville as a program, not necessarily just the actual setup as far as working for the hospital or one thing or another.
Right.
And I knew that they had a couple techs that were that had never been to school, but they were kind of grandfathered in. So I thought I had something really to offer.
Sure.
So we negotiated for about a year, back and forth, and finally they accepted my offer. So I brought in some equipment out.
Now, I like the way you say I brought in some equipment, because what you're talking about for equipment, we were talking computers when we first, before the show started here, but
Right.
my equipment is a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Your equipment's a little bit larger scale than a computer.
Right,
You
right. And yeah, a computer plus
Yeah.
scanning equipment. And it almost looks like a big CAT scan,
Right.
basically.
How many dollars are we talking? I never have asked you. I mean, to start up, everything's changed since then, but to start up this business, if you will.
Right. A nuclear camera
Right.
and at that time was running about $300,000.
Yeah.
And so in my mind,
Right.
I thought it would be like, these guys go buy semis. They go buy, they start up businesses that way. I
Sure.
said, I never really had a business background.
Kick the tires and light the fires, right?
But I said, hey, I know nuclear medicine. I think I could make this happen. And I also had a passion for the field of nuclear medicine. And I had a passion for Knoxville.
Right.
And I thought that it would be a good fit to bring something into this town that you could get in Des Moines or some of the larger hospitals. Mind you that back in those days,
Right.
it was unheard of. But I also had a background in radiation safety. I had a background in several different areas that allowed me to make that transition.
Yeah, it's some assets to offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Today, I know that there's people that have asked to try and do the same thing I can,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be a physician to do some of the same sort of things. So it just worked out. I thank God every day.
Yeah.
That we made those decisions as we were going through life, and everything just fell into place. And
I would have to agree. And, the show's Trying Knoxville, get people interested in trying Knoxville, not just for tourism, but actually move here.
Mhm.
And Knoxville Hospital has some of the best things in the world to offer that you wouldn't think a community hospital of this size would have to offer. I mean, when we were growing up, the stuff you guys do out here on a daily basis now, first of all, you'd have to spend weeks in Des Moines recovering,
Absolutely.
And getting lined up for everything. And now it's just all done in-house. I mean, not everything's done in-house, but the percentages are so much different than when we were growing up.
Right. And, I kind of feel the same way. The thought that I had when we came to Knoxville was my family, my friends' families. Why drive to Des Moines and spend all day? Because the procedures that I do are kind of lengthy procedures, and most likely they're going to have to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. They probably wouldn't get home until 7 o'clock at night. Here, they could start the procedure, go home, come back, finish the procedure, and it made it much easier for the patient. So we were able to provide the community with, upscaled type of procedures that you would find in Des Moines, and still just not have to drive, not have to spend all day in Des Moines. Now, especially since Kevin's gotten there, I believe he's expanded that into so many different areas, and it's we're very fortunate to have this out here because most rural hospitals don't have this sort of thing.
Yeah. And expanding, I talked to him there a couple weeks ago and talking about expanding the OR a little bit, and the plans in the future are phenomenal. Again, for our small little community, I got to brag you up a little bit because you've nuked me, as I told everybody.
Sure.
I had a little bit of a parathyroid problem one time, and the only way of actually identifying that at the time was to go see you. And I'll be honest, a little bit intimidated, a little bit scared, but. I mean, so easy to work with, because I've known you forever, obviously. You're not going to do anything to harm me, but it's not the procedure I thought it was going to be. When you hear the words nuclear medicine, you're instantly thinking, I'm fried.
Right.
But in all honesty, it was a simple procedure. You found the problem, and then we dealt with the problem. So I thank you for making that so comfortable for me. I don't think I ever have properly done that.
Oh, well,
thanks.
Part of the job, absolutely. I mean, I enjoy it so much. That's another thing that I think about all the time is knowing that friends and family and friends as parents. I mean, I've done studies on my own family, but I wanted to treat everybody as though they were my family. And I also know that if you go to a place, say like Des Moines, to have the procedure done, they have no idea who you are.
Right.
Or your background. Every day I talk to people here in Knoxville that may have known my brothers or my mom and dad or so I always thought it was just as important to give back to these people what they should really have in a test.
You mentioned you moved back because of the divorce, the boys and everything else, but there's other reasons to stay here, and this is why you've stayed also, because the boys we're talking about, the two oldest ones.
Yep.
They got their own thing going now. But she remarried.
Right.
Got
absolutely
more kids going on the way here.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm blessed.
You are. Isn't that cool?
It is. It's incredible.
What did you learn? And I'm going to throw a curveball at you because I mean, again, we've known each other forever. The stuff that we got away with back when we were younger. I always tell this story about my daughter. She came home late one night. But she called me. We had cell phones. She called. And my mom found out she came home late. She goes, you need to ground her. I said, oh, she was 10 minutes late. She called. And she goes, you need to teach her a lesson. You need to ground her. And I said, look, do you remember me growing up? When she reaches that caliper, I'll worry about it a little bit. Exactly. Raising your boys and raising your family here in town, small community, we always hear what's going on as adults. You don't think that as kids. But I think it made it easier raising children here.
Oh, I agree. Totally agree.
And you had the whether you want to call it the benefit of 1 year up at Hillis or not, I mean, just totally different atmosphere.
Right. One is it's a close-knit community.
Right.
Secondly, you pretty much know everyone.
Yeah.
And that was that was one of the things I used to tell the boys all the time. I said, there's not a thing you can do, guys, that I won't find out about.
Right.
My parents used to try that a little bit, but they were not, I don't know if they knew as many people as they tried to lead on,
Sure.
because
Sure.
I'd find out that there was a lot they didn't know. But
statutes of limitations
right.
are very
my sons, on the other hand, of course, I had my hands in several different things around the community and several different people, and they would see me. That I'd have them with me when I'd go to the store, I'd go somewhere, and it was just constant. Hey, how you doing? Hi, good seeing you. And so then we'd get in the car, and they'd go, "Well, you do know everyone."
Oh yeah.
So I think it put a little bit of a little pressure on those guys to actually get out and do anything that was what we would have thought,
Right.
back in the day. So
You mentioned being a part of the community. How important is that? I mean, I volunteer for a lot of stuff. I know we keep bumping into each other on different things we're being a part of, but besides being a business owner, it's still a part of helping your community, and I think that makes the community tighter as well.
I agree.
You've done different business adventures, as have I. Some have went great, some of them not so great. Let's talk about family a little bit more, though. We lost Brother Randy earlier this year.
Right.
You guys, how many? I got to go through the brothers now. Bruce, Tommy, Randy, and the sisters.
Yeah, Carol and Cindy.
And Cindy, yeah.
So there were 6 of us
Six
kids.
Totally. How'd your mom and dad just not go nuts?
Well, I almost wonder if they did. I look back on it and think maybe they were a little.
They were so mellow.
Yeah. Out in the public they were. At times. It wasn't so mellow at home at times, but I think obviously Tom and Cindy and Randy, the 3 older ones, kind of broke the ice. They thought that nobody could do anything wrong once they were passed. But Bruce and I challenged him a little bit. Carol wasn't so much. She did occasionally get a little out of hand. But my mom and dad were they believed in us.
Right.
And they always kind of projected the whole idea that you can be somebody, so keep working hard at it. And I think they instilled those values in us. My dad was a hardworking guy. I mean, he worked all the time, all the way up until he was 80-something.
Yeah.
And then when he came home, he worked all the time. And so Mom was kind of the one that tried to guide us in the
Was she the
right
ruler?
direction.
Was she the boss in
absolutely.
the household?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just my family, but my cousins' families. And Mom, she was the glue that held everybody together. In fact, after she passed, it just seemed like everybody just dispersed.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was a hard loss there. But I were they crazy? I think that they knew that that we were Clarks and we had a tendency to
Clark's with an E. We
expand.
need to keep that
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clark's with an E. That's right. But I think all along, they knew that we could all, persevere.
Sure.
So,
and it worked out well. I'll tell you what. How's the little ones doing? I haven't seen. They're probably not little anymore.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, Jackson's growing so fast right now. It's unbelievable. I think in the last month he's grown an inch or so. And Claire's doing really well. She just got out of a broken leg, and thank God Dance got held up a little bit. Sorry, Nicole.
Yeah.
But they're doing great. But they have a very strong mother too.
Yeah.
So Erin's amazing, and I got to give her 90% of the credit for raising these kids the way that she is, and she's just a great mother, and the kids follow her direction. So
that's good.
I'm there to back her up a little bit. So
Mother of you as well. She takes care of you, because I got to tell you, I see the Brian Clarke we see every day, but then every once in a while this gentleman who's a couple years older than I gets in a race car, went out and won the Enduro finally. So he still got.
Well, I didn't actually win it. I've been up toward the front.
Up towards the front, leading the Enduro.
I have
leading the Enduro. Still going to be racing?
No, actually, last year I finally sold all my stuff to John Short and his boy Carter.
That's why they hung up Enduro racing at Knoxville, because you quit.
Yeah, well, that works for me. but yeah, that was 15 years of it. It was a very good time, and my wife kind of put a little pressure on me to kind of pull away a little bit, but she also didn't get in my way either.
Right,
I mean, she knew how much I love racing, and what really made me made that decision was on my way home after the last race, my car fell off of the trailer.
I had not heard that story.
Yeah. So I thought, is this a sign?
Yeah.
I think this might be a sign.
That's a retirement ceremony if I've ever seen
That's
one.
right.
So what's next for Brian Clarke, business-wise or anything else-wise?
Well,
expansions, anything?
No. I always have I have an active imagination, so I'm always thinking about different types of things to do.
Right.
But right now, still fully dedicated to raising my kids and being a family man, and I enjoy it every evening being home, weekends with my kids and my wife, and we're homebodies a lot more than 7 years ago, we got rid of slideways, and once I hung up the hat on that, I really didn't look back too much. I just, you try things, you make things happen, and you stay busy, and then suddenly I just feel kind of at peace. So, and with my family, I think that's incredibly important. So, my son, Jackson, plays football.
Right.
Baseball, of course, baseball's pretty much done now. So
they actually announced today, we're recording this show on Wednesday, the governor did say that June 1st, they're going to allow high school and school sports in general.
Okay.
So baseball may still be happening.
Okay.
I know that locally they're still working on how they're going to do the program, but it still may happen.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That'll be nice because we are on a travel team this year. It's the first time stepping up, and we went through. I think we started practicing in January or even before that, and we haven't been able to have a game or anything.
Right. The school sponsored sports start June 1st, and they're still working on the youth travel team stuff to still happen yet this year. They're still trying to figure the pros and cons. So that'll be interesting.
We just hope it doesn't conflict with football because my son just absolutely loves football. I mean, he is looking so forward to this football season. He'll be in 6th grade, and we're just – it's amazing. I mean, he's a very talented kid, and if I say so myself, and I think that's where he belongs. So, he likes baseball, but football's his game.
That's awesome. We're going to wrap this thing up, but I always ask the same question every time. If you had to convince somebody to try out Knoxville and to move to Knoxville, or whether it be residential or business or anything like that, what would you tell them?
I believe that Knoxville is the place to come back home to. And I've thought of this over and over and over this last 23 years. I've been back 23 years now. There's people that were in my class that have positions, they're lawyers and they're accountants, and Knoxville's going to need those at some point. Yeah. So I always say come home and bring something back home. You've been away long enough. Right. Come home.
Yeah.
And you won't regret it. What I strongly believe is this: there's a group of younger people that have popped in here, coming back. Dylan Morris, Brian Hatch, probably too many to name, but they're making a difference. They're making changes. They're interested in making something happen in this community. And I think it's a great thing. And the bond that we all have from growing up in this community is amazing.
Yep.
I loved being a part of it as a young person, and I love being part of it as an older person. So I think if there's any gleam in your eye to come home, give it a shot.
We definitely invite everybody to come home that grew up here, and we invite the new ones to come in here as well, because it's a great way to start a family or bring your family to and get things going.
I think there's a lot of people that it's more welcoming than I've ever seen it before. Yeah,
awesome deal. Come back and see us again sometime. We'll start telling more stories. As the statutes of limitations, we always tease each other, run out a little bit, all right?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me.
Brian Clarke on Try Knoxville this week. We'll see you next time, everybody. Stay safe.